Welcome to Watercolor Studio 42, and I'm still kind of dealing a little bit with flowers, getting ready, anticipating spring. So, and also the flower show coming up too. And what I'm going to be doing here today, I'm going to be doing probably a lily, white lilies, and I've done these before. They never really come out exactly the same. At least I don't think they do. Relative, but not exact. But this is one of these little artificial types of flowers that you can buy. I guess they consider them like a silk flower. But I visit up to Michael's once in a while, and usually during the spring and certain times of the year, they have quite a display of flowers as you go in the doorway. You're greeted with all these flowers. So this is one of the samples, and you can move it around, turn it around. It's a three of something. I don't know if these lilies grow more than one blossom on a stem, but nevertheless. So we'll do something like similar to that idea. Now, what I've done here, and I do it a lot of times so that I'm able to manipulate the shapes around on the paper to get the arrangement of the flowers the way I want them to go. I usually do an uneven number, 3 of something, or 5, 7, whatever. And but today it's going to be a 3, and that's what we have here. Just the 3. Flowers, one blossoming out, or not quite opened up yet. But I kind of use that sort of as a reference. I look at it as a reference, but I'm not completely involved with a lot of fussy detail. And so what I have is these little shapes that I cut out of some of my paper. I have watercolor paper. It's a little bit heavier, and you can manipulate the shapes around on your paper that you're going to be painting on, and getting an idea. So what I'm doing here, I'm going to just do 3 flowers, and I'm going to have one bending to the left, one sort of center, and the other one going to the right, so that they kind of zigzag up through the area of the paper. Now, you always want to look at the contour, how these things relate. If you're going to draw a contour around the whole thing, is that an interesting shape, or is it just everything looking the same or going in the same direction? So I always try to make sure. Now, to be on the safe side, sometimes I sketch it first. I outline the flower with pencil. Just rough it in, something like that. And then once I have that down, I can either use my ruler if I want to just make really rigid, straight edges, and we'll remove these little patterns. And what I've sketched out here is somewhat of the arrangement of the flowers, so that the stems. It's funny how the flower bends. It goes like this, like a number 7. It goes off, on an angle, and so that's how we'll put the stems in. Now let's do the first one over here. Now, around the opening, as the blossoms come out, it's almost like the shape of a trumpet. The whole flower itself is like a trumpet. So I'm going to draw the top edge here, come around the bend, go over here, and then across the top, it's open in the middle, but then you have all these little, the petals bending back. And you can make them kind of distorted, a little bit exaggerated somewhat, something like that. And then the stem comes straight down. Now, if you want to get it real straight, sometimes I just put the ruler down on the paper and just draw the edge coming down. Now, the other flower is going to be a little bit larger. That's another thing you want to vary too, a little bit, not only the size, but you want to also vary the shapes and so forth, the size. Okay, here we go, along with this, I was going to say this, the size of the plant. So let's do this one. Goes something like this, goes around. You can do it freehand if you want. And then it opens out the petals along this edge. They kind of blossom out a little bit in this area, like something like that. And then again, your stem comes in. You don't want to get it kind of too close to the other one. You can, but then you can make it longer if you want. And then we have the third. You got one going to the left, right. This one's sort of going up almost straight out. So it's going to look something like this way, going up, going that way. Okay, and that's in back, so it appears to be smaller. Let's see if I can get this right. Right. Here we go. And the top edge, you know, the opening. See how they're like a trumpet shape. So now, and this one has a stem. We'll just kind of put that in there, a little notched edge, so we remember it. And then your leaves, they're like a little bit of an arrow spear shape. So those could be put in. I don't know if you want to draw the center first and then put the outside around it. It doesn't really matter how you go about doing it. You could put the leaves in, have them going kind of bent a little bit, and then the spine of the flower. Now, let's see what else. We want to maybe put another leaf over in here somewhere. Fill up that space there. How are we doing? Got a nice little flare going here. Let's put something down into here. Again. Something, let's attach this back to the stem. Now, this can be a little bit on the bumpy side. The stem doesn't have to be that perfect and smooth. Okay? A little bit wider, that's all. And whatnot. Now, as we go along, we might want to add, again, you can put another type of leaf in there if you want. You don't have to do an awful lot of drawing. What I do sometimes is have something maybe coming down in through here, break that up. Maybe break it up, go to the edge here, maybe it could be a background color, cloth, whatever you want to put in the back here. And if you want to show part of a table, you could bring something like this across. It doesn't have to be that perfect, that smooth, and whatnot, just to break it up a bit. And how much you want to do, how much you want to separate it and break it up. You just don't want a big background shape, you know, too much around it. So this is roughly how it might go. Now, a lot of times you can put in the seeds first. There's a little bit of the centers, and those don't have to be too too overly noticeable. Just a few little markings here and there, just to suggest some of the seeds. I wish I knew a little bit more about all the parts of plants. I used to know it a little bit better, and I forgot a lot about what all these little things are, sepals and this, that, and the other thing. Well, anyways, so that's about as much drawing that we needed to do. Put the cap back on so we don't dry the pen out. Then we can start in. Now, again, when I talk about the plants and what I did last time, is I always put a background wash in, and then the next thing I might do is the green part, some of the greenery, the leaves and stem, whatnot. And then the finale is doing, or just leaving maybe the paper just white, predominantly the white of the paper is the white of the Easter lily, or lily, okay? So we'll see what we can do. Now, another thing I always tell everybody is that for the most part I start off with the largest brush, big brush. This is probably the largest one I have with me today. This is a 1-inch flat. Make sure it's clean. Just dip it in the water and make sure there's no paint on the brush. Okay, there you go. Should, when you squeeze it out, should be clean, clear. Okay, now I'm just going to wet around here. You don't have to be overly fussy about it, but try to save the white. Okay, and we're going to go right out to the edge over here. Pull this down around here and up in this area. It's like a little triangle in there. Now, a lot of times I might break that up a little bit. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens as we go along. Yeah. Go along on a little adventure today, painting. And even do, maybe this could be part of a table or the ground, or probably not so much the ground. That line there is a little bit rigid and probably maybe too close to the center. Maybe I'll distort it and break it up with something. Put something else coming out of there. Another diagonal or vertical, line in there. There we go. Okay, so we've wet the background, called a wash. Get that all around here, move it around. If you have a puddle, just kind of pick up the puddle, because sometimes the puddle takes a little longer to dry out. So we just kind of make sure. Now make sure we get the edges, we get some color there, because we're using the tape for the a fake imitation, whatever you want to call it, margin for your paper, for your picture. Okay, now let's take a look at it. Any puddles, I just pick it up. Use your brush like a sponge. And you get that extra water out of there. Usually it dries out pretty good because of the lights in the studio. They kind of give off some heat and help to dry it faster. If you're not sure, just go over it soft with your paper towel. Okay? So there we go. Now, I'm going to start off, use a little yellow. Just a little speck of yellow. Oh, we'll put some in that corner. We'll do something with that here. And how about the opposite side over here? Be careful you don't put too much paint in where the white's supposed to be. Now, if you do get a little white in there, don't want to see too much of it, just blot it. Come around down to the end. Now, where the leaves are, you can put yellow because you're going to put some blue into that to turn the leaves greener as we go along. Go right to the edge, paint right to the edge where the tape is. You can go onto the tape if you want. Pull the paint off onto the tape. Make sure you save the white where the white of the lily's going to be. Okay, here we go. Paint that little area inside here. Maybe make that a little darker or something. Probably made that stem a little bit too rigid. It almost looked like it's wire instead of being, you know, natural things from nature. Let's go into the corner here. Like I said, you can paint out where the leaves are. Go right to the tape. So that when you pull the tape off, you get a nice clean little edge around it. And make sure I press down on the edge here so that too much paint doesn't get underneath. That happens once in a while. Of course, you can actually cut an actual mat and just put a mat over that if you don't want it to be an imitation mat. And put a little darker over here, darker in the corner. A little bit more up, darker up in here. Straight yellow. I use Gambo's yellow. You can buy different shades of every color, but I just kind of stick with one or two. You don't have to spend a lot of money on paint. Of course, they'd like to have you buy all the paint that they produce. Why not? Yeah, here we go. Oh, okay. So we got pretty much the background. Now, what I'm going to do, this is cleaner, yes. We can pat a little bit of the areas that you want. You want to pick up the paint, pick up the water a little bit to have it dry faster. You can do that. Sometimes you can wiggle the towel around and use it like a brush. I've never done painting using paper towels. I've used Q-tips and stuff like that, but not so much a towel. Okay, we probably might put a little heavier paint in through there eventually. All right, now, let's see what else we want to do. See what we have here. All right. Now, you don't have to probably use too many different colors. I put out on my palette, I've got the yellow, I've got some green. You can mix the green too when you use blue with it. And I've got some of the, I think I put some of the Payne's Gray in there. I put Payne's Gray and I've got some green there, forest green or whatever it is. Sometimes I use sap green. Okay, now, I don't know if I want to stick with a big brush. Probably not. See what else I can find over here. Probably a round brush. This one here looks like it might be pretty good to use. Number whatever. Sometimes the numbers get worn out. This is probably around a 10, 12, whatever, in that area. Now, See how dry we are. Okay, now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take some of my blue that I have and take some of my Payne's Gray. I'm going to be using some of that. And actually use some of the actually green that I have. Okay. Now, it gets a little bit tricky on the stem. Maybe I'll use a real thin brush for that. But now, as far as painting in some of the leaves, you really don't have to stay exactly inside the line. Okay, you might go a little bit outside and blot. See what happens when you blot it. Obviously, you're lifting some of the paint off, but also it makes the shade lighter, and it will dry faster. Okay, just go over that a little bit more. Like I said, if you go outside the line, it's not the end of the world. You can, pat it, doctor it up a little bit. Sometimes I touch up with white. I've got somewhere in my white acrylic that I use. I use white acrylic because it's more of a solid opaque color. And they do have a Chinese white, but the only trouble is it's a little bit too pale and transparent. So if you want to fill in an area without anything showing through, I would use acrylic white. Okay, that's that one. I shouldn't probably paint them too close to me. Should start at the top first and paint down. Around the corner here. Here you go. Now, sometimes the brush starts to pull a little bit hard. We just put more water on it and lift up as you go out on the ends. So you bring the pedal to a point. Okay, now where are we? Over here. Let's do this one. I can always tip the paper upside down. You can paint it from any direction, turn it around, whatnot. When I'm outside painting too, I've got it on the table, but usually you put it on a board, drawing board. Probably a piece of masonite type of board. It doesn't have to be heavy. Probably 1/8 of an inch masonite. Usually the size of the paper that you use for the most part. Now you can leave a little bit of highlight in there, and you can also use your towel to blot, and you can also dry some of the paint out of the brush. Okay? It's a matter of going back sometimes, getting a little bit more water on your brush and so forth. Okay, let's go up into here. Bring it out to a point. Bring it back down on this side. There you go. You can fill that one in. Now, as you go along, you can work a little faster. Also, there's a possibility that you may just want to do some green in here. Just a sort of a filler. You try it, experiment with it, see what happens. But if you do it here, then do it over here fill it in a little bit over in this area. You can hit the stem too while you're at it. That's a good way to be able to fill it in. Okay, and then you want to make it a little lighter. Just hit it with a paper towel before it can dry in and lighten it up a bit. Yeah, on that edge. Yeah. Okay, now where are we? Oh, I got another petal right down here. Fill that in. I just do the outside. I do the contour first. Go around the outside. And when they get out here, you can either come in from the point or you can go out to a point. But if you go out to the point, just make sure you lift up with the brush a little bit. Yeah. Now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's an uneven number. Okay. It still needs some filler back there. So we might take a little bit. We might take a little bit of your green. Use a little bit of blue. And do a little bit of the little bit darker background in here. Let's fill in this negative space in here. Right along up through there. You can go into a corner, make it a little darker. If that needs contrast, you just take your brush and take some of the paint out of there, so you just lighten it up a bit. Okay, there you go. Come around the corner and fill this in. Here we go. Now, there's a lot of times artists will leave highlights in there, little white areas, and I tend not to do too much of that because I don't want it to look like snowflakes. You know, they really get carried away with that a lot of times and put an awful lot in there. Okay, if I need this to be more of a contrast, then you can come back in and just paint maybe a little shadow, put something in back here of the petal. But sometimes I don't leave it that way. I just take this and pull this out, pull it back in here. So it looks more like a shadow than it does another shape. Take that edge away. Right there, you can take the edge away in here too. Wherever you go into a darker area, you know, change that. Just see all that light in here? We can do something with that. Fill it in. And I'll show you a little bit later how we can kind of put a little bit more texture or color into some of those areas. Some of the background, you can do something with that, break that up. Now, another thing that I probably talk about if you've caught some of my other classes is that I jump around. I don't just finish one particular area, I just kind of move around. And if I see something that I want to fill in, I'll do that, and then I'll come over here and do something over here. Okay, something over here. And I'm not quite sure what it is, I just have it fade away, just blend it out to the edge of the tape there, something like that. You know, just kind of jump around a little bit. Might want to come over here, do something else. Now, what's kind of interesting a lot of times, if you take like your color and you take the color and you purposely go out of your way to make something a little darker. We'll just go to the edge there. I don't know whether I want to do that or not. But if I do it, if I take the, just make it soft, I can get away with it. But if I leave too many hard edges, it looks like it's too many crumples there, you know. Okay, I hit this a little bit. I can touch that up with white. This is some of the whites. Whether you want to leave some of the areas white, that's up to you. And let's see what else we have here. We had a little bit of this in here. This is going to get darker down around the base here. That's using some of the Payne's gray in there. I usually drop that in there, sort of subtle, you know, just wiggle it around. Now, what I think helps a lot with watercolor paintings is that you don't want every edge to be too soft, and you don't want every edge to be too hard either. And so what you do is you strike a balance. And if this looks too busy, broken up, just erase it. Just take some of it and pull it back out towards the tape, like that. Just take all of that out of there. Yeah, pull it right into the tape, blend it out. So you can use your brush like an eraser. Whether I want to leave some highlight in there, I can, or you can go either way. You can go darker. You can put something else darker in there, in the background. But we got a lot of outline shapes, so we don't have to keep adding more hard edges with the brushes. The brush can do all the soft work. Bring it right out to the edge there. This here, it looks like it's not finished. So I just take and wash that out. See how you can clean it up a bit. Over here. Now, you might want to keep in mind also where the light source is coming from. A lot of times, I'm not always thinking about where the light source is coming from. Now, this looks kind of abrupt here, so what we're going to do here is put some green, a little wedge of green into here, and have that carry beyond that area, come up into here, something like that. That way it shows up, you know, some of the edge. Now, if I've gone a little bit over the edge where I want the white to be, that's where I come back towards the finale and touch up with the white acrylic, right? Wherever I want to clean up an area or touch it up or whatever I want to do with it. You might want to always make, especially underneath part, always get that a little bit darker. Let's see what we got. Okay. I don't want to get too dark, but, you know, a little bit darker. Okay, and do a little bit of fancy work here, huh? A little bit of dancing around here with the brush. Okay. Make sure, pull that back. Now, I've done several of these, well, I've done maybe 5 or 6 lily types of things, and similar to this idea. And A lot of times what I do eventually, after everything's dry, the next day, I'll go over it with a heavier marker and outline it, and they turn out looking like a stained glass window. Okay. See how you can erase some of that if you don't want it to be too busy. And let's take a look at what we have up into here. This could be a little bit darker on the outside here. Okay, go right out to the edge, go right onto the tape, and just take some of that edge off, just pull it out that way. That's smudgy right now, but we can clean that up. Let's do a little bit of contrast here. You get a little bit darker than that, though. Now, sometimes because I'm working flat, I don't have the paper tilted. You get a water stain, and if you don't want to leave it in there, you just lift it out, wiggle it around, take some of that out of there. Okay. A little bit light in there. Take some of that out, darken the background here. A little bit more shadow in there, under here. Okay. All right. That looks kind of empty in there. I may have to do something with that, break it up a bit. And even if you just put something dark in there, you don't have to know exactly what it is, but you're just putting something, a darker background in there. You can break it up, highlight it or whatever you want to do with it. Okay. Where are we going now? Over here. Looks all right too here. I'm not crazy about this area here, though. It's kind of a large triangle right in there. And I may have to do something else with that. When it dries up, put a dark marker line through there, separate that, make one side a little bit more of a shadow, because it looks too flat. There's not enough happening back in here. Okay, we'll see what we can do. How far I want to go to the edge here. You don't want to just stop here. You can just wash this out and take it right out to the edge, in through here. You can do the same with this down through here. Go right to the edge of the tape. Leave this probably, and some of this can be left also. I don't know if I want to make that a little bit more yellow. Put some of the yellow back, maybe. I don't know whether that looks good. See how that's a big void in there? It's an empty spot. So that might need something, a little bit of work in there. Okay. Yeah, I'm not too crazy about that at all. I may have to even pull something out of it, take some of the color out of it. I don't know if that's going to help. I don't know if I want that too busy here. You have to kind of work around it a little bit, but that definitely needs something in there. I'm going to see if I can blot some of that out. Well, I've lightened it up a bit, but it's still going to need something else in there, even if it's just a marker. Just take a marker and just break that up in there. I don't know if I can do it now because it's too wet. You have to let it dry, especially with markers. So, but that's the idea of that. Now, okay. Now you can, eventually you can, if you want, you can put something back in there with a white acrylic. And I'm not quite sure exactly. Let's use this brush, make sure it's clean. Okay, take some of the white. Now, if you want, you can kind of put some of the white back into this. Here, there, you know, you have to be careful what you're doing. Remember I said that I might want to put some of that white back in here too. So I'm using the paint like a touch-up. You paint that back in. And if you don't like what you've done, you can always go over it with your marker a little bit heavier. Okay? I don't know if I want that in there, but you have to break it up. Do something with it, huh? Okay. We'll clean this up right through here. Touch this up. Get a lot of yellow in there. Get carried away when I did the wash. Okay. So all of this can be manipulated and touched up. If you want to hide something there, you know, you can always touch it up. Let's see. Distribution of balance here. Let's put a little bit of this white into here. Maybe something over on this side, possibly. All right. That's not bad. Not bad. Okay. As you go along, especially, I always look at it the next day, if I have a chance, but before the week's out, I'll look at it, see how it dried out. And I put the mat on it, look at it, if it looks pretty good, we'll find a mat for it and put it in the mat. I'll put a mat on it. Just touch this up a little bit in here. Okay, so now let's see. I thought I had some blue out somewhere here. Oh, sure. Let's put some of that on. We'll see what this, the blue always helps a lot. See what it does. Gives it a little bit more zap to it, some color in there. Okay. Just a little bit, we'll see what happens there. A little bit on that edge. Just pull that around. And what I do is take the blue and take some of that edge off and kind of fill in some of those areas. Pull this, that needs a lot of breaking up in here. I don't know if the blue will help that or not. Doesn't look that great right now, but maybe we can doctor it up some a little bit, pull some of that down. Okay. Make it look like it's supposed to be there. Okay. Pull that, soften that out. A little bit over in the, let's see, left, right. Okay. We'll put a little bit off here. We have to use that color more than once. I tell everybody, you know, the artist, he repeats that color, so if you only put it in one spot, people say, he must have made a mistake, so he left it there. So if you kind of distribute that color in your composition, your painting, then it looks like it was purposely planned that way. So I always do that. That might be a little bit harsh, so I might have to lift some of that out of there. It might be a little bit too much. Let's go to the edge with some of that. Okay. I'm going to take a little piece of this. I'm running out of clean towel, and I'm just going to give that a little bit of a soft blot there. Pick up some of that paint here. I don't know if that's smudgy now, so I have to be careful with that. But what I'm going to do is probably break that up a little bit more with some black, either ink or paint. And get that a little bit darker in there. I'm trying to break it up, but it still doesn't look quite right. Okay. This looks like it looks a little bit smudgy here too. So sometimes you can take your brush and just clean it up a bit. You know, take some of that extra paint out of there, and maybe that helps clean it up. This might come out a little bit much here in here. So I'm just going to pull some of that away from there. Pull it out. Now, if that gets to be too much, and I don't want to see too much of that, when this dries out, I can just cover it with white and start over again, or paint over it. So, but you know, you can experiment a little bit on the surface. You can do that. I softened it down in there. Took some of that harsh blue out. Lift some of it out of here too. Just pull it away from it. And when it dries, you probably might say, "Oh gosh, maybe I should have put some of that shading in there, or distributed it a little further down into here." That's possible. You know, we'll see what happens. That might be a little bit much through here, possibly. But you know, it's funny about how things dry out. They dry out, they're not so bad. And there's some little touch-up work that I want to do here. A little bit of detail. Let's see. I thought maybe I should use a little bit of that orange. A little bit of that in here. Just a few little markings, just a patch of color in here, a little bit over in this one, a little bit up there. Okay. That might be okay. Yeah, you needed a little touch up there, a little extra. Now I'm not quite sure. right now that looks a little bit too much. So right in here. So what I'm going to do is wet it and kind of lift some of that dark shading out of there. Take some of that out. Okay, see how, it might look better in the morning, but I'm not quite sure right now. Okay. So it's a little bit on the anemic side, a little bit weak, a little bit soft. So I might have to go a little bit heavier with the marker, probably outlining it more, you know, put some, maybe there's a few little lines on the plant itself. Maybe those things can be put in. But right now, it looks a little bit too weak in through here. It looks like it's kind of frayed and loose-ended. So those things happen when you're working on pictures. So sometimes you just say, hey, I'm going to let it dry out and look at it in the morning. And you know what? Even when you pull the tape off, it might look better. It may help it a little bit more. But for tonight, I'm going to leave the tape on it and touch it up, build it up a little bit more, and then bring it back next week, and we'll have it up on the board. This is one I did last time, and so we'll do the same thing with this. It needs a little bit of, like I said, touch up here, and we'll get a better idea what it looks like in the morning. But I know that I'm going to have to come in a little bit heavier with the outlining and make it a little bit stronger. Right now it looks like a broken glass. It's too fragile. So that's the problem you have when you're working sometimes with art projects. You have to come back and say, okay, I'm going to do this a little stronger. I'm going to outline it more with stronger edges. So it's going to be able to carry across the room quite a distance. I had one I did, I couldn't find it to bring today, but it's around the house somewhere there or down in my art area. But it's one that I did that has a real heavy outline, almost like they do with stained glass windows, you know. And that's very strong. You can see it way across the room. And this one here, it's a little bit too fragile right now. It's got to be a little bit built up. Sometimes you can fill it in more if you make the flowers themselves larger than, you know, larger than life here, and you can do that. So we'll see what we can do with it. And so I'm kind of running out of time a little bit today, but we'll bring this, touch this up, work on it, bring it back and point it out, show it to you a little bit before we start the next class, okay? So I won't take the tape off. The tape always makes it look better because you see the white, you know, you see the white liner around it. But I'm going to leave it on until we really see what it looks like when we get it pretty well finished up, okay? So thanks for being with us, and until next time, brushes up and have a good week.